Hello, and welcome to Sitter's Baked Goods. Today we're going to be making apricot pie. We're only going to be making one pie, but we're going to do two different tests. I'm going to test out if I should use candied apricots or if I should just use fresh apricots. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to roll out the pie dough and then I'm going to put a strip of pie dough in the middle to make a wall so that I can taste one side and then taste the other side. The other thing I'm going to test out is the design. Do I sprinkle sugar on top at the very end after it comes out of the oven, or do I brush it with simple syrup? So we're going to find out if the design looks better, what tastes better, and we'll figure out what I'm going to do when I'm finished this recipe. So let's get into it. First we're going to put the sugar and spices in each bowl, half in one bowl, half in the other. Then we'll start cutting our apricots and our candied apricots. So first, I'm going to put in sugar, white sugar. I use a mixture in this one because I want the sweetness from white sugar, but I also want that more earthy flavor from the brown sugar because it goes well with the cinnamon and the nutmeg. But if you put only brown sugar, it's a little bit overpowering and you don't get that fruit taste through. So I have to balance it a bit. If you prefer just brown sugar, it works just fine. If you prefer just white sugar, it works just fine. Now, nutmeg and cinnamon to taste. Nutmeg is very strong, so I just use about a pinch. A little bit more than a pinch. Just like that. And then with cinnamon, since it's a softer flavor, you need a bit more. So I get a nice, healthy amount of cinnamon in there. Remember, this is to taste, so it's all up to you. My recipe might be slightly different than yours because I like more cinnamon or more nutmeg or less. It's best for you to figure it out yourself. And we're just going to repeat that step. So to cut our apricots, we're just going to simply just cut around. A circle, twist, and pop, and it should easily come out looking nice. The reason why we're doing this is depending on how things look, cut or uncut, we might use this as a design feature. So you can have this nice shape along the whole top while underneath having the more mashed up sauce type ones. Or it might not look that good and just using the mashed ones looks better. Who knows, but it's always nice to have the option rather than just mangling it and then only having to do one way. We're also going to find out if having the skin is important, because I'm going to keep the skin for this fresh ones, where the candied ones have no skin. Now we're not going to test that design today where we put this like this, because I want to focus more on the taste. But when I do finish the whole pie, I'm going to look at it, and it's fairly simple to see what this will look like. This will just look like a bunch of circles along your pie. And I might want to do a lattice, and if you do a lattice, those circles don't they're not going to be seen as much, and I don't know if it's really worth it to keep that. And there we are. Our fresh apricots. Now it's time to chop them up. These aren't like apples or potatoes where they start to brown, so there's no rush really. You don't have to go too fast. But we're simply going to cut it about this thick. Then kind of dice them. We're going to have nice big chunks and see how that goes. Now, let's actually start going quick so we're not here all day. Another idea is maybe having this as a design on your pie and start layering your pie like this and seeing how that turns out. Maybe that will look nice, but we're gonna start with the simple design and work our way to a more complicated one. Now, make sure when you're mixing this up that you're very careful, because these are very soft and you don't want to break them up. You want them to be nice big chunks. Unless you want like a puree kind of pie, you want to just go slow and keep the shape as much as possible. Any big chunks of brown sugar you have to break up by itself and then just incorporate it back in. Just like that. And then obviously the same for the fresh ones as well. The fresh ones can handle a bit more of the mixing. They're not as soft, but that doesn't mean go crazy. They're still very soft and should be handled delicately. So we'll let these sit off to the side while I roll out the dough, get that ready. I'll make a little bridge in the middle, or sorry, a wall, so that I make sure that each side is separated. And we're almost done. Now, I might do a lattice on the final product. Today I won't be. I want to see what it looks like with the sprinkled sugar or the brush of simple syrup, because if it looks super good that way, I might do the slices. I think the slices will look the best, where it layers across the whole top. And I think that might be the best design if it's nice and beautiful without a lattice. If it looks dull and unappealing, I'll probably go with a lattice so I can get a bit more of a design on top. Here we are. Just roll this up on here. Like always, because this moves around a lot, it's easier to start halfway in than finish it. And if you're not in the right spot here, be very careful. Lift it up slowly and drag it back. Lift up as you push into the corners so that you don't rip anything. Then just cut the edges off. Remember, it's a lattice, so give it extra space. Now, you normally won't do this. Again, this is just for testing, so if you want to do some testing, this is a good way to do it as well. If there's any point in time where you don't have enough space or don't have anyone to eat it and you can't eat this much and you don't want to make like 7 pies or whatever, always try to find ways where you can test with the most minimal amount of food. Just be careful with this wall, make sure that it is thin. As soon as it is thick, it's going to not cook fully and become a problem. But it needs to be thick enough so that it doesn't fall down. I think that's going to be good enough. And we'll start pouring in our stuff. We'll start with this candied stuff first. This one's a lot more juicy, obviously, because it's candied in simple syrup. So keep that in mind. I might reduce sugar or make sure I dry them out so that they don't become so liquidy. And then, of course, let's do the fresh side. Because a lot of the weight is in sugar, like in the simple syrup, it actually makes it a whole lot more when you just make it with fresh berries, or sorry, apricots. So let's just crimp, bake, and find out how it turns out. First, we're just going to fold it inwards so that you have a nice big base to crimp. And as you can see, you want a big tall one so that the juices don't boil out when you're baking. But just in case, I'm going to bake this on a tray so that if any juices do come out, they don't go all over my oven. So we're just put this in the oven, but before that, make sure you egg wash. So the final touches is adding cubes of butter across the top and egg washing. The butter is going to soften the sweetness a bit, also give it a nice shine. And of course, egg washing it will crisp it up, turn it into a nice beautiful brown color, making it presentable for everyone. You don't really need to egg wash the middle, but I'm just doing it for fun. Nice nice practice to getting in areas that are hard to do. For example, lattice. A lot of times when you touch in lattice, you'll touch the berries or whatever fruit you're using. Normally it's blueberries for me, and the blueberries always stain the dough and then burn. So it's always good to practice on hard to get areas to make sure you can do a nice brush. So let's put this in the oven and see how it turns out. Here's how it turned out. It's a little bit of burnt on top, so maybe just turn it down a little bit for me. Right when you take it out, just do a light sprinkle across the top. Or a light glaze with simple syrup. We'll see how this looks once it cools down. Big issue was too much liquid. So if I decide to go with the candied apricots, I'll definitely have to make sure some of the liquid is out. And then with the fresh stuff, if I'm going to go with the fresh stuff, I need to make sure that the oven is down. So depending on what I find tastes the best, those will be my fixes. If I can go with the fresh ones, I'm going to do the slices because that looks good. It's nice bright color, so you can make the slices look good. However, if it is the candy that tastes better, then I'll be using a lattice as a topping. And we'll wait till this cools down to taste test. Here's how they turned out. I've decided to go with the fresh apricots and adjust the recipe just slightly with a little bit extra sugar. I realized while editing I forgot to show adding the lemon. You just add it in with everything just like normal. But what I did forget was the flour, and because of that, this pie was a complete soup. It still tasted great, and which is really good for me because this was a testing, is it didn't affect the taste and it works perfectly for me. But I need to make sure that I get that down pat before I actually make the real thing. If you're looking for the tart videos, they're coming soon. I'm just waiting for my bigger cookie cutter so that I don't have to stretch out the dough so much. So in the meantime, I'm going to perfect this pie and actually make it the way I want to with the lattice and the new adjustments. And that will be Friday's video. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I even have my own website. Thank you, and have a nice day.